So, did you hear that Trump pulled out a racist trope from the era of American slavery when talking about undocumented workers? Yeah, he was being interviewed on CNBC when he said this about people from Central and South America working on American farms.
These people do it naturally. Naturally. They don't get a bad back because if they get a bad back, they die.
These people do it naturally. That's precisely what slaveholders said about enslaved African Americans to justify slavery.
Here we go again. Welcome to Trump's America. Wonders never end. I previously shared a video on this platform where farmers were brought from South Africa to work in the United States when farmers were being deported. But do you also remember how deportation was done? It was ugly. We have to say it the way it is. So Donald Trump wants to revert the whole thing, but we know that there are things that cannot be reverted. Yeah, because there are people who are deprived of their medication and lost their life, families who are split apart, and there are other, let me say, little aliens who are in other countries right now, as they were called. Let's see what Americans have to say about this. Apparently, there's something more to this.
Now, hear me out. When the produce immediately changed, at first I was a little annoyed. I live in Arizona for perspective. So yeah, they here. They out here for real. And it hit us immediately. It hit us immediately. Do you hear me? When the produce went bad, at first, and not bad, but like it just was, you could tell. Like you can tell the difference. At first I was a little annoyed, but then I sat back and was like, no, actually, no, for real. That's what they need. They need to see that. And it wasn't just the produce. That's the crazy part. It was the produce and so much other shit that immediately like came like a wave through Arizona. They needed that wake-up call. I've been staring at a house that has been taking upwards of at least, I want to say 7-8 months to finish. Before they left, I used to watch, because this is where I live at, the whole strip is being developed. I watched them complete an entire development in under a year. I watched them complete an entire development in under a year. For perspective, it's a big ass development too. The entire development was done in under a year. There are houses on this strip in the past 6 months, they just been sitting at a standstill. Crickets, where y'all at? When the produce went bad, I was annoyed at first, but then I said, no, they need this wake-up call. They need to know the contribution, citizenship or not, that these people actually make to this country. They need to understand that a land that was already built off of stolen land does not give you the right to kick people out when their ancestors were indigenous to this land. You need to understand the contribution and the amount of work that they did, the jobs you didn't want to do, that I don't want to do on a daily basis. You also need to understand their contribution. Now, Trump wants to bring them back legally. Because he's like, them niggas is not trying to get out there in the sun. And they not trying to do none of that work. And not. Why? So you can treat us 10 times worse? You gonna have to pay to play, baby. You gonna have to pay them people to come back here. You gonna have to pay them people to come back here. Y'all humiliated them in front of the whole world in the nastiest, most vicious ways. You gonna have to pay them people to come back here.
So Donald Trump, not in these exact words, but basically admitted this week that a lot of the things that he's been doing, a lot of the policies, a lot of the executive orders that he's been signing off on was all made with the intention of getting black people back into the field. It was made with the intention of getting black people back into the field. All right, so on Tuesday, Donald Trump made an appearance, right, on CNBC's Squawk Box. And on that platform, he actually made a lot of commentary in regards to the situation with the deportations, migrant workers, the state of America's agriculture, and he made comments on inner city people not doing farm work. I want you to always remember that when they mention inner city, that means black. In Donald Trump's exact words, people that live in the inner city are not doing that work. They've tried. We've tried. Everybody tried. They don't do it. These people do it naturally. They don't get a bad back because if they get a bad back, they die. He also went on to say that they are very, very, very special people and they cannot be easily replaced. Remember what I said, anytime that they mention the words inner city people, inner city communities, inner city neighborhoods, that's black. That's code for black, blackity black, okay? Black people. And it is because of that exact commentary that it reconfirms for me, okay? Not confirms, but reconfirms, meaning that I already knew. But it reconfirms that the plan from the very beginning with these executive orders, right, was to further destabilize black communities, further destabilize poor communities, but black mainly, so that you could put pressure on these communities so that you could get them to go back into the field, right? And then once you get them back in the field, bingo, you've made America great again.
They claimed the natural place of African Americans in the world was to be enslaved because they naturally had lower intelligence and naturally had bodies that could withstand hard labor, long hours, infectious diseases, and extreme heat. Or as Trump put it, they could be worked almost to death and, quote, they don't get a bad back. According to enslavers, black people occupied a position in the natural order that was a notch or two above livestock, but well below the status of white people. That's clearly how Trump sees the largely Latino workforce laboring on American farms. But Trump wasn't done with the racism. He made it clear that in his ideal world, black Americans would be the ones laboring in those fields. But alas.
You know, people that live in the inner city are not doing that work. They're just not doing that work. And they've tried, we've tried, everybody tried. They don't do it.
There you have it. Those inner city black people should be doing the farm labor. But according to Trump, they're just too lazy. As he put it, we, white people, have tried everything, but they, black people, refuse to work. So much racism in just a few sentences. And the eggs? Still expensive.
Modernized slavery. But black people said, fuck this little game that you want to play. Since we are the most valuable player on the scoreboard, we will remove ourselves and let's see if this game is still going to continue. And that's in fact what we're seeing right now. Donald Trump thought that by forcing all of these other people out, taking away our Medicaid, doing all of these things to further destabilize our community, that we would conform, that we would just do what he wants us to do, what the whites of this world, what white supremacy wants us to do. But black people decided to pull a Uno reverse and they did nothing, which is something that they're not used to black people doing. They're used to black people having this spirit of rebellion, having this spirit of revolution. But instead, black people decided that, you know what, I'm going to preserve my energy for me and my people, but I'm also going to remove myself from this game entirely. And now everything is starting to crumble. The way that the America agriculture is taking a huge hit right now because of Donald Trump and his deportations. Like, I don't think that you understand how much America survives off of the labor of undocumented workers. And when I say y'all, I mean all the other races. Black people knew, because black people were telling you. They told you, don't do this. Don't do this, because we're not going back in the field. Don't do this, but y'all didn't listen. And just to put into retrospect of how important undocumented migrant workers are to the agriculture economy here in America, the U.S. Department of Agriculture reports that roughly 42% of crop workers are undocumented, with nearly 70% being foreign-born. This labor is essential in states like California and Texas, where up to 80% of farm workers lack legal status. Donald Trump signed off on a lot of these executive orders back in January. It is now August, and in between that time, he has done a parade of chaotic shit, trying to put pressure on the black community, but the black community has refused to fold. They have not folded. And it's not just the black community, but the legal Hispanic community here, the legal Latinos here, the Browns, and every other race that sees what this administration has been trying to do from the very beginning. They have not folded. And because of that, everything that he has signed off on in January is starting to bite him in the ass in August. And to all of you people out there that had so much to say in regards to the black community and the 92% and them actually deciding to stand down and not participate, to not get involved, to protect their peace, all of the critiques that you had on their decision, let this be your example. Let this be your primary example as to why you should stay the fuck out of black people business. Stay the fuck out of black people business. You had so much to say in regards to our decision and wanting to stand the fuck back and deciding to remove ourselves from this entire game altogether, right? Now, you see that black people actually knew what the fuck they were doing. They knew what the fuck they were doing. They told you were gonna need these people because they weren't doing it anymore. They told you they wasn't gonna do it anymore. You still got rid of them people. You still got rid of the migrants. You still did and went through with the mass deportations, and now you guys want food. But you thought that the black people was gonna get into the field. No, they wasn't gonna do it. They wasn't gonna do it. They wasn't gonna do it. And now you see why they decided from the very beginning, oh, I see how this is gonna play out. Exit stage left.
Hey guys, it's Leash. Listen, your president, not mine, has decided that he is going to reverse this whole deportation situation and is suggesting that people come back to America to work these farms and everything. Not saying sorry, not acknowledging that what he did was probably one of the most horrific things you could do to people and families, children, tearing families apart or anything. No, he is basically saying that, the farmers here need help. And so they're going to educate them, get them legally sent back to this country to do the work that he thought the folks in the inner city would have been able to do.
I'm glad to watch to this extent, and I'll be even much more happier if I read from you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm also glad that Black Americans have re-strategized. I remember when the whole deportation thing started, they decided not to riot. They said they were arresting. Yeah, they decided to re-strategize. I'm also glad that they can read between the lines, and also we know that slavery never ended. It's always reshaping itself, I'm glad, and I appreciate them for their resilience. They have a fascinating story. Like, these are the only people who had to fight for the right to exist, just being recognized as human being. Who else did that in this world? I appreciate Black Americans for their effort.